When I was at the Lions, and you know this story about the longest day.
I've heard horror stories.
So that is the most brutal thing that I went through as a rugby player.
Sure.
The last exercise was treading water.
Now you can miss me with that.
That's where it got spicy.
Because you obviously start sinking after
You
a while.
start sinking.
Yeah, I can't swim, so.
Yeah, most of the brothers were the first ones
Of course,
to
of course. Of course.
So you know what? I always refer to that moment as, or that experience as, if I could go through that, I can go through pretty much anything.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Skosan Unplugged.
I'm in a whip, so I gotta zoom. They trying to talk.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Courtnall Skosan, and today I'm sitting with someone, the one and only person to have scored 6 tries in the green and gold jersey. The man runs a 10.27 on 100 meters. It's safe to say that he's the fastest guy that we've had on the show. Tonderai Chavhanga, ladies and gentlemen. Tondi, thank you so much for joining us, man.
Courtnall, thank you so much for the invitation. It's great to be here. I know that we've been talking about doing this for quite some time,
100%.
so it's great that we finally get to do it.
No, I'm happy, man. I was so excited when you said that you had time, so
Yeah.
it's always funny, like every guest that have come, it was literally just perfect. The alignment was good, the times all aligned up. So I'm so happy to have you here, man. I'm excited about this. I just wanted to ask you, first off, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, brother. I'm doing good. Despite the beautiful weather out here in Cape Town. Yeah, it's been, but doing really well. But I think, one of the things that I think, sort of, I wouldn't say forgot to mention, but we didn't touch on is, it's obviously been a very sad week for South African rugby
Of course.
supporters, and with the passing of Courtnall, who you actually played with, the box. I had the pleasure of playing against him a number of times when he was at Boland, and the Cheetahs as well. I mean, what a player, but more than that, what a human as well.
Amen. Sure.
Really, really good guy. So that's really sad, but just praying for his family to for God's peace and grace.
100%. I mean, speaking on that now as well, and we will send a message and, honor him, and obviously send out our condolences to his family. You've dealt with loss before, so I've dealt with loss before. We know how tough that is, so we're really, sharing heartfelt condolences with them, It was just going through this tough time, Yeah, it's been sad. I was shocked. At the news.
And, I think during times like these, people will ask, there's always questions asked, should he have continued playing rugby? But, I think he played rugby because he loved playing rugby. And no one knows if he had stopped playing rugby and was living a normal life, if his heart was not going to give in. So I think, God's timing and God's, the way God ordains things, it's at times we don't understand it, but I think, at the end of the day, the man passed away, having done what he loved doing. So, all we can do is just be there to pray for his family and support in whatever way that we can.
So Tondi, I wanted to start at the beginning, your early childhood. Who was that child? You're born in Zimbabwe. Tell us a little bit about your background, just for people to understand where you come from and who you were before they started to get to know you as this famous guy on TV.
Yeah. So, my early childhood. So, I grew up in the rural areas, rural Zimbabwe, in a place called Zimuto. It's in Masvingo. So, basically, Masvingo is between Harare, which is the capital city, and Beitbridge, which is the border, the Zimbabwe-South Africa border.
Yeah.
I grew up there. My mom had me when she was quite young. So, she, when she had me, she went on to to continue to finish his studies and start working. And I was growing up. My grandma raised me, so I've got a very special, close bond with my grandmother. So grew up, no running water, no electricity, and the likes. But I must say, even though I grew up in sort of in that environment and under those circumstances, I was very blessed that I never felt anything but love from my family. I think my grandma really instilled some values which still carry me through, and obviously, one of the really more special ones is that I grew up seeing a woman who prayed to God, and just how she lived her life and how she helped people around her was something that I always sort of look back and try and live my life like that. Having said that, I mean, I've got my ways as well.
We all do.
So always try to, but I really always try to do that. So really blessed that I was able to. I think even though I was in that environment, I always knew that God had something else for me. I was in that environment, but I was not to stay there.
Yeah.
So years later, I think in 1994, my dad had just passed on.
Sure.
So I was one of my dad's many children.
Wow.
My father was a very fertile man. So when he passed on, my uncle really just felt that he recognized that I had some talent and some potential to become something. And so, he gave me the opportunity to go to the city, to go and live with him and obviously be educated, to get better education.
Yeah.
And it was through that time that, learned to speak English, really got exposed to more sports than just soccer. I think, in the rural areas, it's mostly soccer and running. Now I enjoyed soccer, but I was not necessarily I was not necessarily gifted to be a footballer. But the running was always something that I enjoyed. So, moved to Harare, went to a school called Blackiston, which is it was a pretty good school then, and I think it was there that my athletic ability really got I would say got cultivated. I got much better mentorship and coaching from there. But crazy thing, obviously 95 happened and I was introduced to rugby, watched the 95 Rugby World Cup, and fortunately after that I was introduced to rugby in I think it was 96 when I started playing rugby.
And how old were you that time?
I would have been probably about 12, 13. I started playing rugby and I just absolutely fell in love with rugby, and after that went to high school to a school called Prince Edward.
I've heard it's not it's like an average school.
Nah, brother. Prince Edward is like, it doesn't get much better. Look, sad, it's not, I think, it's not as great as it used to be, I think, because of the challenges, the economic challenges that Zimbabwe has faced. But funny story, I think I've mentioned this before. We did beat Paul Boys.
Oh, wow.
From Prince Edward, Zimbabwe,
Hey.
yes. So yeah, I always like to tease my mates who went to Paul.
Obviously, a lot of them, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Nice.
But no, really, I think I was really blessed to have grown up the way I did, because I think it gave me, whenever I've faced tough times, I've always been drawn back to where I started, to think, okay, well, if I could live under those circumstances, no matter how tough it gets now, it's certainly not that. So, yeah, but anyhow, I think from there, Started playing, the first team rugby at Prince Edward. Was fortunate enough to have to start touring to South Africa. So we used to go to the St. John's Festival. We went to the Bishops. I think it was the Bishops' 120th anniversary, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously played Craven Week as well. And it was from Craven Week that I was then given a few bursaries.
Okay. And who did you play for in the Craven Week?
I played for Zimbabwe.
Okay.
Yeah, I played for Zimbabwe. Then found my way to South Africa.
Sure.
Yeah, and I guess the rest is pretty much history.
Sure. It's powerful, man. And you said something there, and I wanted to touch on that before we go to the rugby part and the rugby ability. I see you as a very kind person, because the weirdest thing, I tell my wife this all the time, I'm like, Tondi is so, he's so kind. Like, he's always wanting to help people. He's always trying to, sort people out and do all of that kind of stuff. Why is that? Like, is it something that you consciously do, or is it just something that's natural to you? Because, I know you probably don't think about this a lot if that's the type of person you are. But I'm telling you from the outside, watching in or looking and seeing how you are, you're a very kind person. Like, where does that come from?
I think it's in me. And I think, like I mentioned, with my grandma, my mother, and the rest of my family, I grew up seeing my family members helping out other people. So I'll give you an example. My mom was far from rich, but with what she had, she was able to put certain kids through school, help out, wherever she could. So I come from a family where people just, they feel like they must help other people. So for me to be able to, for me to be helping people in whatever way, whether it be an introduction to someone or to an opportunity, whatever the case may be, it's part of that. We often talk about that whole Ubuntu spirit. I am where I am because of people that have, numerous people that have contributed to me being here in whatever, in different forms. So, who am I not to be able to just help someone in whatever way that I can?
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Like, that's one thing that I think is probably the biggest thing I've learned from you specifically. My mother was the same as well, but like, you're a very kind person. I wish to be more kind. Like,
well, maybe you must hang around me a little bit more.
I think a bit more. No, awesome, man. And then obviously touching on your rugby ability, like you said now that you watched the World Cup. Is it like similar like to my story where I became obsessed with the sport because of also the World Cup experience? I remember people driving in the roads, hooting on their cars and going nuts, because we had just won. And that was like the moment that kind of like birthed that little hunger, for something. Because I'm like, look at what the sport can do.
Yeah.
And then obviously my father was a big rugby man, so weekends was mostly just rugby. So I watched it so much that I was exposed to it, and I would go afterwards on the field with a rugby ball, and I'll try and mimic everyone, kick the ball. So your natural your rugby ability, was it natural, or was it something that you physically was like, listen, I love this, I'm going to develop the skill and I work on it?
So I think, like I mentioned, I watched the 95 Rugby World Cup. Prior to that, I hadn't really watched a rugby game. I think I kind of did. I watched my uncle playing at Prince Edward, but I had no clue. So, one thing I knew about rugby was, it was a physical sport.
Yeah.
And it was, as a young man, I think everyone wants to be
100%.
the meneer.
Yeah.
So, but when I watched, and I think I'll go back to sort of my mom, because, my mom used to travel to South Africa. So she used to travel to South Africa to come and buy different stuff, whether it be clothes or different things that she would come and buy and sell and resell back in Zimbabwe. So she would always tell me about all these different stories of what South Africa was like. And she used to travel during the apartheid time or towards the end of apartheid. And so, one would hear of these conflicting stories in that, South Africa is a land of opportunity, but it's also a segregated land. So I think for me, when I watched the Rugby World Cup, and I just saw what that victory did to South Africa in terms of uniting everybody. It was a moment where, I think for that moment, and we still see that every World Cup,
Yes.
where people set their differences aside and
100%.
they stand in unison, really just uniting against the Boks. So for me, that really, I saw that as, hey, rugby is far more than just a sport. It is something that can really, affect. I think as a young man, it's funny that I was actually thinking like that, but anyhow, I did see it like that. So I wanted to play rugby, and like I mentioned, the following year, in '96, a guy called Themba Mliswa then came to my school, Blackiston, and introduced rugby. And the fortunate thing for me was that, I already had the running side sorted out. So I wasn't
Very
the
much.
biggest guy. So, so I just knew that if I get the ball, I don't want to get tackled. I just gotta try run away. So, but as you know, with anything in life, you can have the talent, but if you don't work hard at it, I think we have seen many talented people before that never reached their full potential because they probably just didn't put in the work.
Yeah.
So I mean, I always try to put in the work, but I was also very fortunate that I would say I was favored. I was really fortunate to have been favored by my coaches, who recognized, who saw something in me. So I think, a combination of hard work and dedication, and really just being at the right place at the right time. I mean, I could tell you many stories about that. Yeah.
I believe in exactly the same thing. I mean, I didn't even make any Craven Week.
Sure.
So I was one of the lucky ones as well. Same thing, right place, right time,
And
right people
there's
watching.
not a lot of Springboks that didn't play Craven. I
Not
think
a
it's
lot.
yourself. Eben, I don't think, did Eben play Craven?
Yep,
Did he?
definitely, yeah.
Who, there's someone,
I think there's
prominent
maybe one or
Springbok
two more guys.
who didn't play Craven. Who was it?
I'm not even 100% sure if there's...
Eddie Andrews didn't play Craven.
But currently, I don't think there's
No,
anyone
no,
in
no,
the squad that hasn't played. Like,
No,
so it's
definitely
like,
not.
when you look at it like that, like I definitely, like I agree with you. I consider myself being one of the lucky ones as well that made it through. Yeah.
No, incredible.
So then, obviously now, rugby as a career. So now you're good, you're blessed in the sport. You're saying you're favored by the coaches, you're enjoying it. But now that turn comes when you try and make it professional. When did you realize, or when did that moment hit for you where you're like, this is what I want to do for a career, actually make money with this thing?
No, it actually happened quite early on. It happened, I would say, probably, when I was in Form 2, which is grade 9.
Sure.
I already had plans to come to South Africa to play for the Boks, actually.
Sure.
And I mean, I remember I used to tell my friends at school about how I was going to play for the Springboks, and
You would laugh.
you're in Zim.
Yeah.
It almost seemed like it was impossible
100%.
because I think before that, I think the last Springbok was Ray Mort.
Sure.
So there's been, but then that was during Rhodesia days. I think before me, there had probably been 4 or 5 Rhodesians that had played for the Springboks. I mean, the ones that I can remember is Dave Smith, Ian Robertson, who was actually my high school coach and went on to coach the Sharks. Ray Mort, absolute legend. Who was another one? I think I'm forgetting another chap. But so I very much wanted to one day play for the Springboks. So when I think playing for my school, Prince Edward, at the various tournaments where we did play against some top opposition. I mean, playing against Power Boys, Affies, those type of schools, and Paul Roos. Look, we didn't always win, but it was a nice way to measure myself against the very best at the time. And then, funny enough, about those happenstance, I I always like to tell this story about how when I moved to Free State, I was under 19 or under 20, I'm forgetting. I think it was under 20. It was on our off day, so on a Wednesday. So I decided now I'm going to run to, I was at Koffsie's at the University of Free State. So I was like, hey, you know what, let me go to the stadium, go and run some stairs. So I jogged down to the stadium, started doing some stairs. And as I was running, the SA under 21s then rocked up. They started doing their training. And then I see the guy was our director of rugby, an absolute legend called Umtat Botha. He's standing there with Jake White. So they call me, and Jake is like, "Hey, I remember you from the St. John's Festival a few years ago. What are how's things going and all this?" And he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna be looking out for you." So from that moment, I then had a shoulder up, but Jake White sort of kept tabs on me. And the following year, I played for SA Under 21. But the reason why I tell that story is because had I not run to the stadium to go and do stairs and stayed like in Rez at the time and just chilled because it was our off day, I wouldn't have met Jake. So it's. It just worked out that way.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. That's special, man. And then I wanted to talk about your Cheetahs journey now. That was your first, that's how you came to South Africa. So now you signed that contract, right? I remember moving up to the Bulls in 2010. I got my shot like mid-year through. They had a lot of injuries. They were looking for players. And I was playing club rugby in Cape Town. I played for Durbanville Bellville. And lucky enough, did you
play for
Durbanville? Yeah,
okay.
Durbanville, yeah. So I played Durbanville under 20s, actually.
Nice.
So one weekend, the guys came in. I told the story before. Chester came and he was like looking for some young players because he was coaching a team, invitational team for Sevens tournament in Kenya, Safari Sevens. And that weekend happened to be a game where I scored 6 tries. We played against False Bay, if I'm not mistaken. He was like, "Listen, I'll use you." Went and I played the tournament. It was broadcasted on TV. I came back. My coach is like, "Listen, guys from the Bulls, they saw you playing. They're looking for a guy, short term, like a loan deal." I went up, obviously, and that's where my journey started.
Amazing.
Like that's how. So same thing, like you're saying now, right place, right time, doing certain things where it happens. But I remember coming there, and Victor Matfield, Pierre Spies, the Morning Stays, Zane Kirshner. I was like, wow, like I'm greeting these guys by hand. I've never met professional players in my life before that. So I remember that being like a wow moment for me, obviously being a lighty, having this dream to become what these guys have achieved. They're Springboks, So what was that moment like for you? You now get that contract, you now know you're in a professional setup. Or was it kind of just like, this was already written for me, I'm walking in my destiny?
I think it's a bit of both. In that, look, I was very fortunate when I was in Free State. So during that time, Free State had Rassie was. So I was fortunate to play with Rassie and be coached by him.
Sure.
So imagine the team. There was Rassie, there was Osturant, there was CJ van der Linde, there was Henry Scholes, there was Frederick Lombard. Eddie Fredericks, Andre Fenter, the big Andre Fenter, and obviously Kennedy Timber, who was a fellow Zimbabwean. So just that opportunity to be able to train. I mean, I think I was 19 at the time. I was still quite young, where just having that opportunity to train with these guys. I mean, I remember the Tuesday sessions was copper stamp, dude.
Yo, tell me about it.
I think those were the worst sessions. I think those were harder than the game.
100%.
It was
because the guys that are not playing are trying to write everyone off.
It was brutal. I mean, like I remember Shimi was also there, Anyani Shimange, and Shimi Kutako. Those sessions were absolutely brutal. But in terms of getting the contract, so funny enough, with how I ended up playing for the Stormers and being contracted to the Cheetahs was that I came under a junior contract, but the Cheetahs at the time they say that they didn't have money to contract me. So Rassie actually paid money out of his own pocket to get me a contract.
Wow.
And then the Stormers at the time, they were looking for a fullback. Or they were looking for a fullback or a wing, one of the two. But then Rassie then put my name forward and said, no, but why don't you take Tonderai, because he can play fullback and wing.
Sure.
So that in itself was, that was incredibly humbling.
Sure, that's crazy.
And yeah, man, it's been quite a journey.
That's powerful. So now, I'm trying to ask the question because I'm trying to understand, and go through your journey. Like rugby role models, did you have someone that you inspired?
Oh, definitely,
to be
Chester,
like?
bro.
Chester.
Oh yeah, the fact that he wasn't the biggest guy around, and yet he played for the Boks, so it was a nice way of actually saying, okay, if this guy can make it, I can also make it.
Yeah.
I might be in Zim, but this guy is actually giving. Like you look at what Cheslin and Arons are doing. They're not the biggest guys. They're
100%.
actually giving so many youngsters hope that, hey, you don't have to be the biggest guy to make it. You can actually, you can make it even as a small guy. Just work on your skill and speed and all the other sort of skills, all the other sort of attributes that you can. So it really goes a long way having those kind of role models. You could identify with the Chester, and obviously wouldn't love John Olomu. But as much as I love John Olomu, the icon,
yes.
But I could never be a John Olomu.
Same, yeah, never.
You can only admire him from
100%,
afar.
100%.
So I think funny enough as well, when I was at Free State and we played in the Sevens tournament, it was Chester who actually picked me for the Boks Sevens. So I ended up being coached by him.
Wow.
So yeah.
That's special, man. That's special. So yeah. No. So fast forward now a few seasons on, you get the nod. Springbok number 768, if I'm not mistaken.
But
But Springbok, you obviously now you make your debut for the Springboks. It's a special day in more than just one way. Can you take us through that journey, that day? Like, was there a big build-up to you getting that selection? What was that like for you, getting that nod? And then obviously we know what happened on the day, the 6 tries. Talk to us about that.
When Jake selected me, he had prior to that, he had given me a bit of a talk when he selected me for the under-21s. He was basically saying, look, I don't care where you're from. If you're good enough, you're going to make it.
Sure.
And I'm going to pick you. So, and I think I've probably shared this before a few times, but the night before the game against Uruguay, Jake wrote me a letter just saying, hey, I believe in you. I would not have picked you if I didn't believe in you. Go out there and go and enjoy yourself and express yourself. So I think you would know that as a player, you play your best rugby under a coach who backs you.
100%.
So, sometimes, you might even doubt yourself, but if you've got that coach, that mentor that is, urging you on, you play besides yourself.
100%.
So the fact now that my dream was finally, I was actually gonna live my dream. My dream was, it was so humbling, and I felt this. I felt this thing on me that, hey, you know what? I'm playing for South Africa and putting on the Springbok jersey, but at the same time, I've also got a family and a whole nation behind me, other nation, which is Zimbabwe. I've lived in South Africa for over 20 years, but the reality is that, yes, South Africa is, I think I'm probably going to die here, but Zimbabwe will always be my home.
Yeah.
So, I always have that very special place for Zim. So for me as well, it was also an opportunity to show young Zimbabweans that, hey, if I could make it, so can you. There's been more talented players before me and after me, but if I could make it, you can also make it. So I think, playing for the Boks, playing professional rugby in general was just a dream, and I was really just blessed and fortunate to have played certainly for as long as I did, with all the injuries that I had. Obviously we know how that story sort of went on my debut, but just grateful, man.
Yeah, sure. You said something. You scored. I think one of the stuff that I watched, you said, you scored 4, and then the message was sent onto the field. Get the ball to Tonde. And I think that's the nice thing is people. And I mean, you always do this as well. You always give the credit to the team. And I think it's amazing that. Although it's such a special achievement for you, you're credited to the team. But I mean, it's something that will go down in history. It hasn't been done ever again after that, And I think it's still, it will probably somehow in the future something will happen. But I think it was a special achievement for you, and I think it's amazing, to have been. I was inspired by it. You're one of the guys that I watched that made it look effortless, made it look easy, that I was like, yes, I want to be like that, because I remember the game. I was watching it, so I remember the game, and I think it's quite special, So
no, thank you very much, and I think that's the great thing about rugby. That's one of the things that make rugby very special, in that it's a team sport. I think there's a lot of team sports. Without bashing soccer, soccer has got so many superstars and it's a totally different culture. But I think what makes rugby really special is that if you're not a team man, you cannot survive. You will not survive, 100%. No matter how talented you are. And I often like to refer rugby as really the perfect depiction of what the Ubuntu spirit is about. So if you look at, you got 15, obviously now it's 23 men squads, different shapes, different sizes, different skill sets, different backgrounds, and. But everybody is standing there in unity because they've got one common goal. They mesh everything up and to make it work for the team. And I mean, Cheslin can be an absolute world beater and everything, but if Mahelba doesn't scrum and Kitsov doesn't scrum and Andre doesn't pass in the ball and you're not going to score that try.
100%.
So I really just love the way that the values that you get out of rugby. It's things that I still use now in my after rugby life. One could never take glory for, no matter how well you play, without the assistance and collaboration of your teammates. You're not gonna do that well.
100%. And then you touched on it now as well, injuries. You've had your fair share of injuries. How did you deal with that? How did you stay resilient? What are some of the things that kept you going? Because I know injuries. I think if someone hasn't played sport and gone through stuff like that, they might think, but why are you complaining? You had such a fruitful career and all of that kind of stuff. But mentally, and emotionally, it affects you quite a bit. So how did you deal with that?
Look, it's like I said, mentally and emotionally, it really affects you, especially when it's almost contract time.
Sure.
You get injured, and you're like, okay, you got 6 months before your contract renewal, and you're like, oh no, I've got to try and get myself back quickly enough, like so quick, and be back on the field and playing well, so that you can get re-signed.
100%.
So I mean, you go through all those different emotional lows, highs and lows. But I think for me, firstly, I'm I know that I say fortunate a lot, but I really am. I'm very fortunate in that I'm naturally a person who always sees things as in a very positive light. So I never think that things are not going to go well. Things are going to go well.
Yeah.
Regardless of how things are,
Yeah.
I always think that it's going to work out.
Yeah.
So I think having that attitude of knowing that I'm going to get out of this situation is something that has really helped me, and I think also my faith helped me in a tremendous way, because I learned very early on that rugby is what I do. I love it. It's what I do, but it's not who I am. One day it's going to be taken away from me, and I'm going to have to stand on my own 2 feet.
Yeah.
Without that. So the other thing also that I really did and focused on when I was injured was that, because I knew that rugby was not going to be there forever, I started doing other things, working on a few other different business opportunities to just stimulate my mind as well, and to try and get myself in a situation where I know that eventually when my rugby career is finished, I can fall into. So I think for me, having a positive mindset, but more importantly, really bedding down my identity, and obviously stimulating my mind with a few other things.
Yeah.
That's how I went through it.
Sure. And then is that the same stuff that you use for off-the-field challenges? Like, is it exactly the same strategy that you use, or does it change a little bit?
No, for me, so if I look at my rugby career finishes, now I've got all these plans that I've put together in terms of, okay, my rugby career is finished, this is what I'm actually going to be doing. You try and implementing that, and then everything just goes haywire and nothing works.
Sure.
You go through a few years where you're hardly getting any salary. Yeah. I went through, I think, about 3 years where I did not get, I'll do a deal every now and then,
Yeah.
but I did not get a consistent salary that was actually...
Like what you were used to?
Yeah. In fact, I never actually got a salary because I never really worked for any, but
Yeah.
I never got consistent income that was like, I could be like, oh man, I've got in the next few months, and it was like living from paycheck to paycheck for quite some time. So I used that same, that same sort of principle in that I know things are going to work out. This is only temporary.
Sure.
And I just had to continue grafting. I always like to refer to, so apart from growing up in the rural areas, when I was at the Lions, and you know this story about the longest day.
About the horror stories.
So that is the most brutal thing that I went through as a rugby player.
Sure.
The longest day. For those of you that don't know what the longest day was, it was basically on the last, after a brutal preseason, a long preseason, we had the last day of camp. I think we stayed at, was it Rao or UJ? Or one of the two?
I think it was one of the...
One of the two. So we went to go and stay at Rao or UJ for the night. But everyone was scared because we all knew something bad was coming. We just didn't know what it was or when it was coming. So we went there the night, slept on these long gym mats with sleeping bags, and we were waking up just before 5. Started doing, basically we started like exercising
As soon as you wake up.
as soon as we woke up, which was I think before 5, and everything was pretty much for an hour, and then you run to the next station. We finished, I think, around 5. I think it was from 5 to 5.
12 hours.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Without eating,
What?
without drinking anything. I think they gave us, you had to eat something disgusting like around lunchtime for you to have a Powerade.
Yo.
So those that refused to eat the disgusting
Obviously didn't get
stuff
anything,
didn't get anything. but it was absolutely brutal. And obviously, the last thing that we had was I mean, it was from running hills to doing these crab crawls. You know, when you're walking on the
backwards, Oh my
to
goodness.
lifting your teammates and running up and down. Like everything was an hour to the logs. You know, carrying a massive log and doing all these different exercises.
Wow.
But the last exercise was treading water. Now
You can miss me with that.
that's where it got spicy.
Because you
That's
obviously
where
start sinking after
you
a while.
start sinking.
Yeah, I can't swim, so.
Yeah, most of the brothers were the first ones
Of course,
to
of course.
So you know what? I always refer to that moment as, or that experience is, if I could go through that, I can go through pretty much anything. So you know, like I said, went through a few years of not getting, you know, consistent good income. But it was, you have to fast bait
Sure.
and hold it until, you know, things come right.
And lucky you learned that early in your career. Every preseason you have to bait fast.
100%.
Crazy. So now, obviously, Tony, you know, like when we spoke, you know, and I told you about me doing the podcast, starting the podcast. The main reason, or one of the reasons that I started this, was for me to get knowledge and information from different industry leaders and people that are doing stuff. For me to see where there's opportunities for players or sports people to get involved while they're playing, or you know, after, like what life after, you know, the game or retirement and all of that kind of stuff look like. You know, you're one of those guys that now, you know, you've built a business, something significant, you know, since you obviously stopped playing, you know, and I think it's just fitting for us, you know, to obviously dig in a little bit, you know, and you explain to people and we have the conversation. So for me to learn as well, you know, for whoever's watching, to be able to understand what it is that you can build out there. And there's so many different things. We've had comedians, you know, we've had radio DJs, we've had people from different places. We've got an episode that went live about like how you think about money and how, you know, you can manage all of that kind of stuff. How do you build wealth? So, you know, I think for us, we'll start with obviously your retirement. Like, you know, when did you know it was the time to retire? What was that journey like?
So I knew it was time to retire when I could hardly walk to my car after
my
training.
Goodness. Sure.
So
And that's after a day of training.
yeah, pretty much. So look, I think I knew it was coming for a long time, but I was holding on for as long as I could because, you know, things were not all that set. I think, you know, talking about finances and stuff like that, it's at times it's not always about how much money you spend on whether it be cars or buying Louis Vuittons or whatever, you know, brands that you like. At times it's really just about just being wise. So I think with a lot of us that don't come from money, you make it. So in our case, you make it to play rugby, you start earning well, but you've also got responsibilities that you've got to look after in terms of looking up. Most cases, whether it be your parents or relatives. So my thing was that I was never someone who was flashy, was you know, spending money on a whole lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
For me, it was. My wife always laughs, you know, because when we met, it was every now and then. It's like someone comes, oh, my shack burned down. Please give me this or this and that. I mean, that's all good and well to assist other people. But I will never forget my uncle told me this thing, and I didn't actually listen to him. It's a very good lesson, but I didn't listen to him. I only hit to it later on. Excuse me, I've just got...
No problem.
So he told me that, listen, these people that you're helping now, remember that they've been struggling before you came. It's good for you to help them, but make sure that by the time your career is finished, that you're not where they are. And it was a very powerful lesson in that. I was giving and giving and giving and giving, but I wasn't necessarily investing what I had. So everything all the income that I was getting, I mean, as a rugby player, you already know that X amount of your income is going towards tax. In fact, half of your income is going towards tax. And then you've got to pay your agent.
Yes.
Then you got to pay your contract insurance.
Medical aid.
You got to pay your medical aid.
Which is a hefty bill.
You got to pay, in most cases, you got to pay for your car. You got to pay for your house. If you've got kids, you got to pay for your school kids. You got to pay for food, cell phone bills, and everything adds up. And then on top of that, now you still want to live a bit, but you've got responsibilities with your family. And then you realize, okay, maybe that, 100, 200 grand that I was earning, after the taxman is taken half, and my agent is taken 8%, and my contract insurance is taken, what is it now?
I don't know. I think that they've changed it now.
Anyhow, I think at the time it was around 3%.
It was a certain percentage.
So you realize that you don't actually have much left. So I think for me, that was the thing. If I could go back, I would certainly be a lot more wiser with how I distributed my income. Because I think had I been a lot, and they were all good causes, but they were not good for me.
Yeah. Like I said, you were kind. You were a kind person.
They were not good for me. So when I found myself in a ditch, now I've got a family. I've got my wife and my 2 kids. Fortunately, I didn't have the 3 dogs back then. Sure. But you got a wife and kids and 2 kids. Now you've got to provide for them. But those people that you are helping, they are not in a position to help you. In fact, those multiple phone calls you used to get, I mean, my phone bill at one time was like over 3 grand, and that was back then.
Sure.
So you're like, okay, you're spending all this money on phone calls. You're obviously calling people because people, give you a missed call and you call them back. But you hit tough times and no one is there. And I think the one thing that I can also say, particularly to young players, is you got to do what is best for you.
100%.
The unions are there to get the best out of you, not necessarily to look after you.
Sure.
Because when the tough times come and you're injured or your career is over, you're not going to go back to the union. They're not going to give you a job. They're not going to lend you any money. It's going to be like, oh, shame, sorry. Sure. That's it. So when we hit our tough times, one is someone who's got a bit of a name. You also don't want people to know that you're struggling.
Of course.
So reaching out to people and asking for assistance was tough.
Sure.
And then when you actually, sort of gather the courage to ask, and then you realize that, hey, listen, you are no longer the flavor anymore. There is someone else.
Quick.
It changes quickly. So that was a massive lesson. A massive lesson in that, dude, you got to look after yourself. But I probably got sidetracked a bit. But I think it's very important to really look after yourself in whatever way.
Yeah. And what do you, so is that you would say obviously was the toughest thing about retiring? Obviously you knew that it was coming, but then you retire. So now I ask you the question again, what kept you going? What were the good things?
So it's very simple. What kept me going? My wife and my kids. So you look at your wife. I'm so blessed to have such an amazing wife. Through our nearly 4 years of struggles, we never thought about money. She was always supportive in saying, "Hey, things are going to come right." And I know that it was definitely a lot tougher for her than for me because, she had the responsibility of also trying to lift me up when she was going through her stuff. So she's trying to lift me up because now if I end up getting depressed, and then there's also the 2 kids who are also young. So we're also both trying to make sure that they don't really realize that things have changed.
Yeah.
So the fact that I was seeing how supportive my wife was and looking at my kids, that kept me going. And I was like, okay, I could never, I never once considered throwing in the towel. Because at times when things get tough, you can just be like, oh, well, we are where we are. It's been 2-3 years now that things have been tough and things are not going to get better.
Yeah.
But, I go through some of the countless proposals. We tried everything. We tried everything. When the initial thing that we were working on didn't work out, we tried everything. And yeah, it just didn't work out until, the right time came. And it's funny, I was on my way to Zim. I was going to go and meet there was another opportunity. And then I happened to end up sitting next to someone. And I looked at them and I was like, hey, is this person, because it looked very familiar. And I said, hey, is such and such your family? And then they're like, yes, they are. Why do you ask? And I was like, oh, I'm actually going to go and see him. Anyhow, long story short, this guy was meant to be in business class, and there was some kind of mix-up that happened, and he ended up sitting next to me. And because of the mix-up in business class, he ended up sitting next to me. We ended up having a conversation. Fast forward a few months later, he ends up introducing me to Rob Hersov. And I met Rob. I didn't really know much about Rob at the time. I met Rob, and one of the things that, talking about kindness and stuff, and I was like to Rob, hey, you know what, I've tried, this and that. I've helped people and all of that, and, things are just not working out. One of the things Rob was very quick to say that just pay the goodness forward and it's going to come back to you. And yeah, he was basically just saying, continue being kind. Being kind you can be kind to a street person that is never going to give you anything in return, but somehow the blessings are going to come back. But long story short, Rob then said, hey, listen, what is it that you want to do? Then I told him. Then he's like, okay, there are, I think it was three or five companies that I must look at, and then he said, okay, let me know which companies you'll be interested in. And I told him, connected me to those guys, ended up getting a job, and that kind of got me back on my feet. So I owe so much to Rob. Rob is a really great guy, a very, very outspoken guy, and very his conviction about certain political things are very strong. But as a human being, he's an incredibly generous man. I'm not saying generous is in giving money and stuff. For one thing, I can say is that Rob opened up opportunities for me. I never got a cent from him. But the opportunities that he opened up for me gave me gave me that opportunity to earn. And I think that's very important, because at times as people we can be quick to want to get given money by people, but that doesn't help. That only lasts for as long as the money is there. But if someone can give you an opportunity for you to actually be able to earn, it goes much further.
Sure.
So, build a really good relationship with Rob over the last, I think, 6 or so years. And he's someone that I always lean to. Yeah. So he's become a very good friend.
Yes, that's special, and it's funny because, I'm obviously thinking about transition. I'm thinking about making that change. I've spoken to you as well, So it's nice for me to hear. And this is the one thing that I've learned, starting chatting to you as well, that there's a lot of people out there that are willing to help. There's a lot of people out there that's willing to give you an ear to listen to what your ideas are and what you're thinking of doing and what you are passionate about and all of that kind of stuff. But just before we go to you explaining what it is exactly that you're doing, is I feel like, sports and sports people in general, might not necessarily think these things are important. Like when it comes to networking events, you know, putting yourself out there, talking about your passions off the field, you know, talking about ideas and business ideas and stuff that you have, or just professional ideas, whatever the case may be. We find that, or I find that most guys are, maybe they want to get paid for their time, you know, I don't know, some guys maybe don't think it's important enough. So I wanted to ask you the question actually, you know, what do you think, why do you think sports people do this? And how can we change that? Because I do believe that if sports people put themselves out there a little bit more, especially in that regard, professionally, you know, I think there's a lot of opportunities that are waiting out there. Don't wait until you're done and you're struggling and you don't know what the next step is. Put yourself out there while you're the talk of the town, while people know your name, instead of waiting until you're desperate, you know, before you put yourself out there. It's just something that I think about this a lot.
So I think the answer is quite a simple one. When you play, in this case, we're talking rugby. A professional rugby player, you really are wrapped in cotton wool. You live in a bubble.
Sure.
Everything is done for you. I mean, I bought my first pair of sneakers, I think,
in your late 30s?
About 5 years after I stopped playing.
Yeah.
Because you're given so much stuff.
You get all of it, yeah.
You're given so much stuff. You don't even book your own flights. You know. Yeah. I mean, back then when we were playing, the check-in was even done for us.
Your bag is in your room already when you get there.
Your room.
Yes.
Flying business class. I know things have changed a little bit now. Flying business class, and you've got people that are coming from all over that are wanting to be associated with you. So it's very easy when you're in that space to believe that this is what life is. But sadly, it's far from it.
The reality.
You've got to try and maximize your brand while you're busy playing. In some cases, I actually think that the guys that are not necessarily the top Springboks or even like your
star players,
the guys that are not the star players are probably better placed at times, because let's say you look at someone at Boland or someone at Griquas or whatever, one of those smaller unions, or even if you're at a big union but you're not on a big contract, I think reality kind of sets in quite quickly, or at least it should, that, hey, you're not there, therefore you need to make sure that whether it be studying or whether it be that you need to find another job and put yourself in a position where the transition is much easier. Now, as a I mean, when last did I play? It's been years. I mean, I don't even know when I last played. It's been absolute years. But one thing that I know is that not all the time, but when I get into boardrooms and I get into meetings, there's moments where some people recognize, like, hey, aren't you Tonderai Chavhanga? You play for the Stormers, whatever. Then it just changes the whole conversation. Then suddenly now they are they are now a lot more open to what you have to say. So it's so important to leverage off of your brand to set yourself up for whatever it is that you want to do. And the reality is that not everyone is meant to, not everyone is built for studying. But you've got to equip yourself in whatever way for whatever thing that you want to do. I mean, we are living in an age now where you don't have to have a traditional job to make it. Guys are making it doing podcasts, doing content, and earning a very good living from it.
100%.
So there is so much. I think the players now are getting paid way more than we got paid back then, of which the guys probably that had it best are the guys that got paid the least. So if you look at pre-96, those were the sort of amateur days. The guys were having normal jobs, but going to go and play professional, and they were basically leveraging. If you look at how many of the guys, so you look at your Gary Teichmans, you look at your obviously
Rudolf as well, Rudolf.
look, Rudolph is still in the game.
Yeah.
But I'm talking guys that are not necessarily in the rugby space. So Andre Joubert, the guys that built really good businesses.
Yeah.
One, using their names, but because they were the leverage off of their names, they were then able to get linked up to different companies and really build amazing businesses.
Yeah.
So now, because the youngsters are coming straight from school into getting a contract.
Big money as well.
And big money.
Not what we
now,
used to get.
Now, like, you think, okay, you're 19, 20 getting, let's just say 80 grand a month. And then your guys that are your age that you went to school with are like earning like 20 grand if they're lucky, and they're studying. But the thing is, they might start at 20 grand, but because they're learning something, as they're getting older, they're earning more and more and more.
And it's for 50 years.
And it's for a long time. Now, you're earning a lot, but as you're getting older, you're earning less and less and less and less. But if you don't equip yourself for life after rugby, suddenly now you move from, I mean, I'm sure the top players are probably getting on what, above 3 million now?
Way above.
It's
The
been
top
that long.
guys. The top guys.
It's been
Way
that long.
above.
It's been that long since. So the top guys are way above 3 million. But now you think, okay, you're done now. All you have is your name. You don't have any skills whatsoever. Which job are you going to go into that is going to give you what you're earning, or even half, or even a quarter of what you're earning because you are so and so? I think only... So if you look at the past guys, how many guys can be in television? Not a lot.
Not a lot.
So at the moment
It's not
you got John de Villiers, you got Shimmy, you've got Victor Matfield, you got Scala. Let's just say there's about 10 or so guys. Those guys, I mean, how long was Nas at SuperSport for?
Very long.
Nas was at SuperSport for a very long time. So long story short, there's only a handful of guys that can do television. There's only a handful of guys that can go and coach
the big teams.
Coach the big teams.
Yeah.
So never mind the super or URC teams, because that takes a long time for you to get there. The school teams, which some of the school teams are actually paying really good money.
They've got professional. They've got coaches that have been in the game for very long.
But how long is it going to take for you to become a coach where you can get paid very well?
Yeah.
So your choices now become quite limited in terms of rugby. Then you get some guys that they want to take an easy course. They want to do ETA. Sounds good and well, but your ETA coach, your ETA qualifications is going to probably get you to be a personal trainer. Now, coming from being a rugby player earning X amount, you don't want to be a personal trainer because you're going to be getting paid, what, 250 Rand an hour?
Session, yeah.
Something like that. So the networking and really being intentional about what you want to do after rugby is so, so important. And you've got to do it like you said. You've got to do it while you're still hot. Because after that, then you would just be like, I know that guy from somewhere.
Yeah.
Didn't he play
look familiar.
Didn't he play for the Bulls? And then you become like an afterthought. So investing yourself is so, so important. And sadly, yes, I think maybe some unions have become better, but sadly, I don't think the unions do much to encourage players to study and to do other things off the field. And I don't know where my players is at the moment, but it's your own responsibility. It's your life.
Players' responsibility.
If you're waiting for my players or the unions to look after you, you are going to be waiting for a very long time.
100%, sure. And now, your business. So your title, CEO, co-founder, what is your... I know you don't like going by titles, but I'm like, just explain to us a little bit what it is that you do now. What is your business? What is it all about?
So, like our main focus at the moment, so we've got a consultancy firm, and we operate as an advisory and facilitating different, like a facilitating partner.
Yeah.
I think we've built a really good network in partnership with Rob. So our network has got over 3,000 business leaders from all over the world. You're talking investors, entrepreneurs, captains of industry, and the like. So people reach out to me when they need assistance with various things, whether it be that they are looking for funding, or they want to be connected to a particular opportunity, then we basically find them strategic partners and see how we can structure a mutually beneficial sort of solution for them. So a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now is things that I've actually learned on the fly. I didn't study for any of the stuff.
Wow.
One of the more exciting things that I have been working on is in the logistics space. I've been working on it now for the last 4 years, and when I went into it, didn't have a clue about rail logistics, but really, through grace, been able to learn on the fly, and yeah, so that's been going well. I'm really, really enjoying it. So one of the passions that I have, and it's something that I was doing before I even had a company, I've always been fortunate to meet the right people. And having certain conversations, and then later on you sort of remember that conversation that you had, and you're talking to someone else that needs assistance with one area, and then you're able to connect the two. And I would say for the longest part, I didn't really know how to monetize those type of opportunities, but obviously over time we have found a way of structuring that. And assisting,
and not giving away too much source. But how do you monetize it?
I think,
how do you approach that? What's your approach to that?
So I think it's all about. I think each opportunity is different. So there are certain opportunities where, for example, there is a significant company that was selling off one of their businesses. And they were looking for buyers or investors, and we're able to link them up with investors that ended up ultimately buying that part of their business. So then you structure in there how, like, basically your commission.
Okay.
And then some other opportunities, you get retainers. So it all depends with what kind of opportunity it is.
Okay.
But I do probably give away a lot more than I should. But I always believe that playing the long game is the way to go. So it's a fine balance between playing the long game, where you're giving your services and stuff like that ultimately for free, but you've got a long game. You can sort of see things playing out a certain way. So you're happy to wait out. Some of them, they do end up converting. Some of them, it's like, hey, lesson learned, it's all good.
Like you say, you learn on the fly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's been quite a journey. It really has. And like I said, I've really been fortunate to have had people that have been patient with me while I was learning. And to have people that have invested in me as a person. Yeah.
And then, obviously, would you say, or I'll ask you the question, what has been the best thing about your transition from sport into the corporate world or into the business world and your ventures that you're doing? What has been the best thing about that transition?
I think one of the best things is it's got nothing to do with business. But it's about knowing people. I think throughout this journey, I've learned so much about myself and about people. I think it's easy for people it's easy to say stuff until it's time to do something. So, like I mentioned, and I'm not talking about people that were not in a position to assist me when I needed assistance. I've assisted quite a number of people that, in terms of out of principle, you do something for someone out of principle where you put them in a position where they make money, but then they think that they can make money, but to you it's just thank you. So I think I paid a lot of school fees in that regard. And to some of them, it's like people that you would actually, and certain organizations that you wouldn't actually think. I mean, I'm not in the business of naming names, but at times you need those lessons because they really wake you up. So I think the learnings, what I've learned on this journey has been the most valuable thing. And just really learning about the business. I wish I had actually done a lot more of that before
you stop playing.
Before I stopped playing. So I think if I look at how many Wednesdays and Thursdays, which are half Wednesday off days,
and then captains,
and Thursdays half days, and then captains, how much I could have actually invested more in myself, in whether it be finding a company that that I wanted to get involved with, where I could have maybe gone to go and spend a few hours at the business and learn a little bit more about that industry and about how that business operates. It would have been so much, I think the transition would have been so much easier. But I think everyone has their own journey and you've got to walk that. But I just think that there are certain lessons that are not necessary for you to learn when someone else has learned them. So, yeah, I think to the younger guys that are either wanting to play rugby or are already playing rugby, in this sport, anything can happen. Huh?
Anything.
You can get injured and you don't play again. There can be a coach that doesn't back you and you don't play for that team again. There's so many things that can happen that are sort of beyond your control. So I think that cliche saying of just worry about what you can control and everything else is just leave it there. So I think guys should certainly look at investing in themselves. That's really one of the things that I've really learned now, that I need to invest a lot more in myself in terms of learning.
Yeah, and I think just to add on that as well, when you're saying that anything can happen any day, that's on the flip side is the good things as well. But does that mean you don't have to develop these things still, even if it's going well? So it's not just for the guy that's not playing, getting injured and all of that. It's for the guy that's also playing and having a fruitful career, because it stops for both of them.
It does.
It stops for both of them, So I wanted to ask you a last question before we close off. And if you had to start your professional career over, and I think you kind of took us there a little bit, but if you had to put it in your words, you starting your professional career over, you that 18, 19-year-old walking in at the Cheetahs, what would you do differently and why?
It's easy to take the easy route out and say, hey, I am where I am now, and I'm where I am because of how things worked out.
100%.
But I would say that, one, I definitely would have studied. I would have invested a lot more of my money. I also would have invested a lot more in myself beyond just the studies. I would have even built a lot more relationships from a networking standpoint. Because like what we were mentioning earlier, yes, I started doing it a bit later and I'm still doing it. But you've got CEOs of companies, you've got investors, you've got
coming
all this
to games.
Coming to games.
Every week.
I mean, you go, I think I've spoken to you about it before. You go into the stadium on Captain's Run and you look around
all the branding.
All the branding that's there.
That's all companies.
And the thing, that's all companies that are there to watch you play. They would love it if you would call them. And if you go to like in your case, to Western Province or to the Stormers office and say, listen, can I have a look at the suite holders that you have? And then you see, okay, there's a company that that is doing something that you're passionate about. And you call them out, hey, I'm Courtnall Skosan. Thank you for the support for the Stormers. This is what I want to, I love your company, what they're doing. Can I have a few minutes of your time to learn a little bit about your business? You think they would say no?
Beautiful.
No, they would not say no. So I think things like that, small things like that go a long way. And I love the fact that I think you started recognizing that quite early on, and you have been actively doing that. And however long, you've got to play, the fact that you're already doing that, you are really investing in yourself, and things are just gonna continue getting better and better for you.
That's what we hope for.
So yeah, it's exciting, brother, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how your journey continues on the field, off the field, and yeah, wish you all the very, very best in your career and post rugby career.
Thank you so much, Tonde, man. I want to say thank you. I think for you to make yourself available for this, you're a busy man. I know that for a fact, but for you to come and sit, humble yourself, to have a conversation, and share all of these tips and tricks and stuff that you've gone through that were actual real challenges in your life, to open yourself up to that. And I think that is, for me, the essence of what this is. It's for us to be able to have a candid conversation where people can see, we didn't know that. So a lot of people don't know that, because you don't talk like this to just everyone, every day when you bump into them. So I want to say, I'm humbled. I want to honor you. I want to say thank you so much for opening yourself up to that. In my eyes, you're a legend. You're an amazing person. I learn a lot every single time we get into contact with each other, whether that's by having just a conversation, giving me a tip, or whether that's just seeing how you act and move and speak to people and treat them with respect and kindness and all of that kind of stuff. There's a lot that I learn, and I think a lot of players need to tap into that. They need to tap into people that have walked the journey, that are now walking into things that they are aspiring to or thinking of doing post their careers. And it doesn't matter what phase of your career you're in. I think it's very important, So I'm fortunate to have bumped into you and to have met you. I told you, we missed each other along the way, but we both in Cape Town now. And like I say, like you say, right place, right time. The stars always align. And I just want to say thank you, man, for the person that you are, and for opening yourself up to this.
No, thank you, brother. Much appreciated. You got a good thing going on here. You got a good team behind you.
Thanks, man.
You got a beautiful wife that supports you, and your kids. They're gonna they grow up seeing their parents working together, and it's inspirational stuff.
It is. Guys, I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I've been looking forward to sharing this with you guys. Please don't forget to share this with someone. And if you could be so kind as to press the subscribe button, it should be somewhere at the bottom here, or even on the screen. There's a little icon at the corner here that you can just click on and subscribe. It will do us a world of good if you can do that. See you on the next one. Thank you so much for tuning in.